in Mexico. And I hope to travel there next year to take one of these myself. And she's going to be talking about some of the images that she has created, inspired by both the biblical stories and the Gospel of Mary, which is the subject that we'll turn great attention to tomorrow. And as she prepares to speak to us and unmutes, I just want to invite you to drink in this particular image because it's so powerful for me that you see Christ here reaching out to the women, and how many women there are. How many women there are. To you, Mary Jane.
Thank you so much for including me in this amazing panel of women and our beautiful perspectives. I hope everybody will enjoy what I'm about to show them. Lizzie, I really enjoyed your introduction about imagination, because that's exactly where my work entered into what I tried to be a very traditional iconographer and stay within the realms of the Orthodox Church, and I just could not, which I'll explain a little bit. And Lucy, I know you're the scholar, so anything I say here, please do hold me accountable. And Faye, thank you. Your work is beautiful, and it inspires me to push even a little bit further to move away from orthodoxy. But I have to say, I love the Orthodox catalog of iconography. So this icon is called Extravagant Love, and it's the love of Christ has for women. And the reason I did the icon was I had done a workshop, and we all did the woman at the well, the Samaritan at the well, and her name is San Fortini. And in the midst of researching this, I found out that that is the longest conversation Jesus had with anybody in the Bible. And I found that to be just absolutely earth-shaking for me, because I thought, well, now, wait a minute, where are the women? And up until that point, I had been trying to stay within the Orthodox version of Christianity and the way icons are painted and who they're painted. And there is a canon of Russian Orthodox images that you can use. There's 500, and they cover all of the feast days, all of the events of Jesus, all of the saints, all of the patriarchs in the Bible. And so I went back to my canon and I thought, I wonder how many women there are. Well, there are only 14. And so between the workshop and this icon and learning that, I absolutely thought I'm on a journey. So for the past 5 years, I have been creating icons from the point of view of what do women do when we love Jesus? What do we do when we follow and we nurture and we heal and we create lives that are filled with service? So Elaine, Kayleen, will you do the next slide?
Yes.
Or do I do that? I'm sorry. Okay. So obviously my first direction was to go to the Nag Hammadi Gnostic texts that come from Jordan. And I found the Gospel of Mary, which many of you are probably familiar to. It's a fragmented gospel because so many pages are missing. But at one point, it speaks of Mary leaving the tomb and going to the disciples and trying to explain, hey, what are we going to do now? And they really do, if you go back and read it, you'll see it just kind of disquiets her and says, why are we going to listen to her? And Andrew is the one who pipes up and says, he loved her more than he loved us, which I'm probably paraphrasing badly, but I loved the concept that she busts in here and tries to explain, because she is the apostle to the apostles. She sees Christ. She speaks with this gardener who she recognizes as the rabbi. And she's not driven away, but the way she writes the gospel is she kind of left in silence. So here in the icon, we have her with her scroll, her writings, and then another scroll yet to be written. And it has to do with, it alludes to the future of the church and how these gospels are going to be formatted. Next slide.
Sorry.
Is that the next one?
Mhm.
We're doing the mirth-bearing women, and this is the same icon that I was inspired by. Many people have been inspired by the one with that has the 7 women, and I reduced it to 4, partly for composition and partly because you can do what you want. I put the dark background in it specifically because I imagine in my mind that these women went to the tomb at night or early dawn, but it was dark. And I think of women as being we're not secretive, but we don't really point to our own light very often. For centuries, we've been well, I don't need to explain that to anybody in this format. So anyway, we have all the women arriving at the tomb. This icon got me into a little bit of trouble. It's a bit provocative, but it's Mary and Christ in holy union. And it's not meant to be a marriage. It is meant to be what happens when we really dedicate ourselves to a great teacher, a master, a technique, we yoke ourselves to our towns, we yoke ourselves to our families. So what does it look like when Mary yokes herself to Christ? Or what does it look like when I myself yoke myself to Christ? So Mary comes as in service with Eucharist, and she has a deacon's stall out of respect for the way things are right now in the church where we don't have women priests yet. And Christ, who comes with the Jewish prayer shawl from where he has come, and his text is, I am the light, the way, and the truth. What I particularly liked about the design was their hands that don't touch. It either looks like Jesus is saying, not quite yet, Mary, or now it may be your time. And Mary offers again a scroll that has yet to be written, which is a familiar theme that runs through my work, had run through my work for the last 5 years. So there's lots of references in Orthodox iconography where the apostles are writing. And it made me start thinking, well, women write. Surely back then, some of them wrote. And their texts may have never made it to publication, or they weren't invited into the churches to speak and to proselytize or instruct. But surely the women did this between themselves, because women love to get together and have groups, exactly like we're doing today. And the text at the top of the icon is, as he is, so we are in the world. And in painting this, I had a great sense of humanity being made up of two sides to the same coin. And that we've seen a lot of the male side, and the female side is still a little, I'm going to say, I trip through this kind of thing because I don't want to offend anyone. But I can tell you that I read in the Google search that of the 1,700 names that were named in the Bible, only 137 women are named. And in the King James Version of the Bible, with 800,000 words, only 10,000 words are dedicated to women. So it is an issue of where are our words. And in my painting icons, I really want to enliven new images where we see women writing, where we see women teaching, where we see women healing. Not so much just because we went to the tomb. And as many of our presenters today have talked, they understand that these powerful women in the time of Christ are still circulating in our energy, are still circulating in our souls, are still trying to find their voice. I certainly am. I guess that's it. This is a more classic version of how you usually see the apostles depicting how they wrote the Gospels. They call them the Gospel writers, and of course they're Matthew, Luke, Mark, and John. And somebody else put up today this quote, what is hidden from you will be proclaimed to you. It's a very powerful statement. And I think we're just about to have that happen. And in this particular icon, it has a little bit of Mary Jane humor. Normally, women and lesser saints and lesser people are smaller. And in this case, I made the man a little smaller than the woman.
And back to one of the things that I loved about what you shared about this image before is if we look at this image, you'll see there's that chasm and that the women have to come out of the dark. They've been hidden in the caves, and we certainly know, as we'll turn our attention tomorrow to the Gospel of Thomas and then other texts that were found in the caves of Nag Hammadi, where we find not just Mary Magdalene, but Martha and Salome and other women here, their identities obscured and hidden throughout the centuries, now beckoning to come out, come out, come out to the light.